Hi everyone, I'm Javi Hoffman from the Developer Relations team, and it's my great pleasure today to introduce Chiu-Ki Chan and Cate Huston of Technically Speaking. They are going to talk today about conference proposal writing from brainstorm to submit. Chiu-Ki and Cate publish Technically Speaking, a weekly newsletter with inspiring links about public speaking and conference proposals from tech conferences that treat their speakers well, encourage new speakers and diverse speakers. Chiu-Ki is based in Denver, where she's an Android developer with a passion for speaking and teaching. She recently hosted her first developer event. Cate is a mobile developer currently based in Colombia. She travels the world and speaks often about tech culture and mobile development, and we are very happy to have them here today for our final masterclass of the Tech Speakers Phase 2 Summer Pilot. If you are a tech speaker and attending from some far-off corner of the world, thank you very much for being here. Keep in mind that there will be homework associated with this presentation. It's the shorter version of what's usually a longer workshop. So without further ado, let me bring Cate and Chiu-Ki to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Javi. Well, welcome everyone. Today we are going to be talking about, like Javi said, conference proposal writing. So let's get started. Let's go through our agenda so you have an idea of what is going to be happening today. First, we are going to figure out what you're going to talk about. In other words, own your expertise. What are you good at? We're going to have some brainstorming exercise, not right now, that's homework, that you can figure out what you'll be speaking about. And then we are also going to talk about other ways to build up your expertise so that when you are going to be giving a talk, people already know who you are, essentially. After that, we will go through the mechanics of what is a proposal, why do you need a bio, how do they make it such that people will want to hear you speak. Afterwards, we are going to skip over actually the write proposal and write bio part because, again, that's homework. Later, you will go ahead and take what you learned from this lecture and exercise it with your fellow buddies. But we will wrap up the whole talk with submit early, submit often, and get into action. Now, own your expertise. Every time when I talk to someone about public speaking, they're always like, it's great, it's something that I should be doing, I know it's good for my career, but they will tell me, I have nothing to say. I have heard this so many times that me and Cate decided that it is time to make stickers. I have something to say, you have something to say, everybody has something to say. Come on, you have lived, I don't know, N years on this earth, and you have been doing something that somebody else has not been doing, I guarantee you. You are not living a life that's identical to somebody else. So you have something to say, you have something interesting, you have your own perspective. Now, our job is to figure out what that is. And it's not one thing, you have multiple things, right? Like you don't live a singular linear life. This is one way you can discover your expertise. Think about recently what you have done. Or in my spare time, this is what I do. Or professionally, I've been doing this for this many years. I organize this, I build things, I lead things. There are many, many aspects of you that is interesting. Now, for us, how do we own our expertise? Why are we qualified to give this workshop? Well, in our case, both me and Cate are really passionate about public speaking, so much so that we have a weekly newsletter. Every week, we send out links, we send out conference proposals, we send out inspiration, so that every week you get that reminder, say, hey, remember, you're trying to become a public speaker, do something about it. So with that, we have built out our expertise. We now are known for teaching people how to go to conferences and give talks. There are more than one way, though. I'll let Cate continue.
Chiu-Ki and I were wandering around Copenhagen, and that's when we came up with the idea for Technically Speaking. And the reason why we were there, though, is because we were both speaking at the same conference in Scandinavia. And the reason why I was there was because Chiu-Ki had told me to submit to that conference. I forget how many times, but she kept telling me to submit until I did. So basically, the idea was for us to combine things that we were already doing. Chiu-Ki is an expert on what CFP is open and which conferences are good. And for me, my Twitter feed is like 25% pictures of raccoons, 50% interesting links, and 25% nonsense. So the idea was that between us, we could take what we were already doing and we could package it to scale ourselves up as a mentor. So the idea of Technically Speaking is with a mentor in your inbox every week that says, hey, you have something to say. Here are some places that you could say it, and here's some things that might help you. We really wanted to demystify conference speaking because it was something that had seemed really opaque to both of us. We'd both worked at a pretty insular company where having a public profile was, let's say, not encouraged. And so we'd both broken through and built public profiles for ourselves. And Chiu-Ki had really helped me a lot as I come after her. We wanted to do that for other people in a way that would scale. And a core idea of Technically Speaking is that you don't need to be invited, you can apply. But nearly 2 years later, Chiu-Ki and I are mostly invited. And this year I actually decided to only give invited talks, which seems a little bit hypocritical. But I had a lot on already, and I decided to limit myself to 6 talks, and so something really had to give. But how did we get to this point? Well, we show up every week and demonstrate our expertise. So like Chiu-Ki said, we send out this newsletter every week. And that's a big part of why we both spoke at Write Speak Code earlier this year. But aside from the newsletter, we both show up in other areas. Chiu-Ki's blog is one of the best resources on the internet when it comes to testing on Android. And I have written a lot about a lot of things, but one of my big focuses recently has been giving better technical interviews. Speaking really builds your reputation, but so do other activities. And speaking can have quite a long lead time. Even if you have a great abstract and bio today, it can be months, until you actually get to give it at a conference, just because the lead time for submitting to CFPs and hearing back from them can be so long. But writing is completely within your power. If you have a great idea for a blog post, you can write it today and you can publish it today. You get to determine the time frame. And so writing is a really good way to figure out what topics you have a lot to say about, document things that will be really useful in your talks, create an association between yourself and a topic. So when people think about technical interviews now, they think about me, and I know that because they often tweet about me when they do. And it's also a really helpful way to gauge people's interest in the things that you might talk about. So what is it that you've written that's got the most retweets and the most comments? That can be a great basis for a talk. And then, if you get really pro at writing, you can get to the point where assembling a new talk is really just rearranging your blog post you've already written about it. Chiu-Ki, hand it over to you.
Thank you, Cate. So now we understand what does it mean to be an expert and how do you build the expertise. Let's get to the mechanics of how do you get into a conference. The way it works is that conferences have these things called CFPs, which is call for proposal. And they invite everybody to submit what they want to talk about. Now, some people thought, that CFP stands for call for paper, so they want the whole thing written out already, and then they want it to be complete and ready, and then submit. No, this is not how it works. The proposal is literally a proposal. I have this idea that I would like to talk about. It's a sales pitch. And it's not like you need to jam as much information as possible into your proposal. This is not how you get accepted. So I have been the conference just happened 2 weeks ago, and it has been in making for months. And being conference organizers means that I have to pick the talks. So I actually saw a lot of proposals. And let me tell you, if you send me a novel, I'm not going to read it. So for my conference, we had 26 slots for talks, and we got 187 proposals. How much time do I have to read each of them? Not a lot. So what you need to do is to sell your talk in a very short amount, the smallest amount possible, in fact, such that when I read it, or the way my conference works, we actually have voters. So we invite people from the community, and then we send them the abstracts, and then they rank each talk, give them a score, and then that gets filtered back to the organizers, and then we pick the talks. So these people, they have day jobs, they have other things to do. You really need to get their attention very quickly. So think about your proposal as, hey, you would like to come to my talk, and this is why, rather than explaining every single thing under the sun that's remotely related to your topic. In other words, what is a proposal? Us startup/techie may know this better. It is an MVP. It's your minimum viable product. It's the smallest number of sentences you can use to express what you want to talk about such that people would like to come. Your goal there is to make it easy for them to pick your talk. Make it obvious why is this a good talk. So what is the topic? By that, I mean maybe 1, 2, at most 3 sentences of what are you going to talk about. Do not give the history of the topic nobody wants to know in your proposal. Be short, be specific. Next up, once you explain what is the topic, give a few concrete things that you'll be talking about. This way, you're not just telling them, oh, this is wonderful, this is great. You actually know what you are going to be covering, a few key points. And finally, make sure that you know what they're going to be taking away from the topic. I am pretty formulaic in the sense that pretty much all the proposals I write at the end says, by the end of this talk, you will. So either you will learn or you will be able to do this. So that if you think about it, right, if you go to a conference and you look at all the different talks and you try to decide which one you want to go to, you didn't know that, but at the back of your head, that is what you're calculating. Is this worth 1 hour of my time? Will I be able to take away something from it such that I want to spend this hour? So make that obvious to them. Like, this is literally what you're going to walk away with. And that is how your proposal is going to shine. I'm going to let Cate give you an example of how she does that.
Thanks, Chiu-Ki. So like Chiu-Ki said, a proposal is a sales pitch for your talk. So I'm going to go through an example of a talk that I put together about giving better technical interviews. So when I'm writing an abstract or when I'm helping somebody else write an abstract, what I have us do is to make 3 lists about it. So the first list is reasons why this topic is important. And the second list is the things that we think that people could take away from this talk. And the third list is what points we would plan to cover. So this was a talk I gave about being a better technical interviewer. So why is this topic important? Well, interviewing as an interviewer or an interviewee is really, really stressful. The whole purpose of it is that we have to make an important decision, but we have incomplete information. And we want to get as much information as possible, but in a respectful way. There's not enough training on interviewing. How many people at a big company have basically been told how not to break the law and really not anything else? And we get very little feedback. What things did I want people to take away from it? Well, I wanted people to feel confident that they had a path to becoming a better interviewer. I wanted them to have an idea of why this work was worthwhile, because, there was a lot of it. And I wanted them to focus on what they could control. So what was I going to cover? What do I cover in this talk? Well, I cover some ways to make people feel more comfortable. I talk about how to give feedback. I go into detail about what does a good technical question look like. And I also talk about time management. Time management is really important in this context. And I talk about removing bias in feedback. So let's look at my abstract. All right, I'll read it to you. An email in your inbox, a conversation with your boss. The company is hiring, and you're to be a part of it. You are going to be an interviewer. Maybe you get some legal training, but soon enough you're out there experimenting with somebody else's career. Aside from the odd polite note from a candidate following up, you get no feedback. So how do you know what you're doing well or not? Tech industry interviews are often particularly adversarial, the coding on the whiteboard, the ominous silence. But just because the experience was bad for you doesn't mean that you need to perpetuate it, even if you're participating in a broken system that you don't believe in. Cate Huston offers concrete strategies for making the part of experience you do control better for the interviewee and discusses how hiring managers can help your team be better interviewers too. So did you notice something? Pretty much nothing on the third list made it into my abstract. And so the reason why I have people make that third list is so that we can decide what to leave out. People have this tendency when they're putting together an abstract that they really just put together a summary of their talk, which is like not a sales pitch. It doesn't sound very compelling. So like Chiu-Ki said, and I'm just going to say again, don't summarize your talk in your abstract. Sell your talk in your abstract. So to get started, getting started is the hardest part when it comes to, well, really anything, right? So I have a formula that I use. So it starts with a strong statement about why this topic is important at a macro level. And then some specific points that tie this more narrow topic to this macro point. Then the second half of the abstract mentions 2 to 3 important points that you're going to cover. And then after which you'll be able to, like Chiu-Ki said, this is a really important bit, concrete audience takeaway. All right, now Chiu-Ki's going to talk a bit about crafting a bio.
Thank you, Kate. So great. Even greater when you can hear me. All right. So that's great. Now we have a sales pitch. You have a way to convince people to move the mic closer. Okay, this is not working. Great.
Oh, okay. This not. Okay, I will stop touching equipment now.
You wanted the Madonna mic.
I know.
Never again.
Great, now you have a great sales pitch. You have a way to convince people that this is a great topic, this will be a great talk. But we still have one missing piece of information. Why you? Who are you? Why do you want to give this talk, and why are you the correct person to do it? This is where the bio comes in. The bio is a way to fill that blank, essentially. And one thing I see a lot is people have this one bio, which is their life history, starting from which college they graduated, which companies they work, which country they travel to, how many pets do they have, etc., etc. No, this is not how you put in a conference bio. The conference bio needs to be specific to your talk. The whole point of having the bio is such that when the conference organizers or whoever is making that decision of inviting you to give that talk, have some information about why you are a good person to give this talk. So you want to tailor it, you want to curate experiences from your life that's relevant to the talk and put that in your bio. Okay, so how does that actually work? Let me show you some examples. This is my bio. I'm going to show you 2 versions of my bio, and then we can see which one do you think I should be using for this particular talk. I'm going to read it out loud to you. Chiu-Ki Chan is an Android developer with a passion in speaking and teaching. She has spoken at numerous conferences all over the world and has been recognized as a Google developer expert for her extensive knowledge in Android. She runs her mobile company, producing delightful apps such as Monkey Write for learning Chinese writing, Heart Collage for snapping photos to stitch into a heart, and FitCat, which gets more athletics the more you walk, the more you walk. I don't usually read my own bio aloud. Next version. So the first part that is black is exactly the same. I'm not going to read that out loud to you. So I'm going to read out loud the purple part. She is the co-creator of public speaking newsletter Technically Speaking, and hopes to make the tech industry a better place by encouraging more underrepresented minorities to speak and be visible. So now we have Bio A and Bio B.
which one do you think I should be using for this particular talk that I'm giving right now? B, yes. And yeah, I put on my favorite color, purple, totally, just to bias you a little bit. But why? Why is this a better bio for this talk? Well, I'm here to talk about public speaking. While, yes, I wrote all these awesome apps that are very nice, and I would love you to check them out, this is how I can convince you that I am the person to give this talk. I have experience in public speaking. I have experience in teaching public speaking. So what you want to do is, it's very difficult to cater it 100%, right? So you notice that the first two sentences are the same for both versions, and that's what I call I am awesome, you want to listen to me sentences. So that part is pretty much constant, that I just start with, I'm an Android developer, I like speaking, I like teaching, and then put some credentials in there that is generally about me. But then I end the bio with something that's specific to the conference. And this way, it complements your proposal so that, hey, great talk, great person to give it. All right, you are on. So one pro tip, I don't know about you, but for me, it's very difficult to talk about how great I am. Sure, I put on a show right now to say how awesome I am. But in reality, most of us are a little bit shy. We don't want to be like, oh, wow, I am the most amazing person on earth. So do it with a buddy, have a friend, and you tell each other how great you are. It actually helps a lot. So go ahead, write the bios for each other, and then you can critique, you can help each other out, and talk it out loud, like what are the different things that you have done in your life. That is much better than just sitting there on your side and say, I am great. I need to tell the world I'm great. Get a friend and get some help. Cate.
Thanks, Chiu-Ki. Okay. So I talked a little bit earlier about how Chiu-Ki and I started Technically Speaking, and how we wanted to encourage people with, you don't have to wait to be asked, you can apply. Most conferences have a CFP process, and let me give you a pro tip, that CFP process does not take place in your head. Don't roll yourself out, submit and see what happens. So when should you submit to a conference? Well, when you have an idea that you're enthused about and you have an event that you'd be excited to speak at. Like, do not overthink it. Rejection doesn't necessarily mean anything. It might just mean that it wasn't a fit for that event, either because of the way that they're curating or because they already have a talk that would be too similar. Refine it and resubmit it. Our stickers and t-shirts say, you have something to say, and it's because we really believe that you have something to say, that everybody has something to say, that we would all be better off hearing. So please don't get discouraged and start ruling yourself out. Like we say, submit early, submit often. Thanks so much. We have some homework for y'all, which Chiu-Ki is now going to explain.
Homework time. I hope you're all excited and you want to get into action. So this is something that you can do with a couple of friends or you can do it at your company. The idea is that we want you to get together and actually sit down and figure out what topic you'll be talking about, write the proposal, get feedback, write the bio, get feedback, and then go ahead and submit. So let me step you through how are you going to do that. Step number one, split into groups. All these exercises you'll be doing with your buddy group. You can do the grouping in different ways, maybe with people that are in your same team, or maybe if you have a broader group, then people that are same interest or same geographical area, so that maybe you're like, I would like to speak in Barcelona, and then you can get other people who would like to speak in that region so that you can keep an eye out on the conferences for each other. So once you have that group, we will go through the exercise, what we call Own Your Expertise. So first of all, you sit down, do the exercise on your own. It's a 30-minute exercise of brainstorming and figuring out what you can be talking about. The link that I include here is the detailed instructions. So go ahead and sit down and brainstorm and come up with all the different topics that you may be interested in speaking. Once you have that, you can write your proposal. we have included 2 links here, and of course, if you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get weekly more resources into your inbox nonstop until you actually write your proposal. So what you do is go ahead and write those proposals about some of the ideas that you had, and then read each other's proposal and try to figure out, do I want to go to this conference? And if yes, what makes it compelling? And if not, what is lacking? So give each other feedback and iterate on that. Once you have your proposal, it's time to write your bio. Let me reiterate, write your bio that is specific to the proposal. Make sure that it's not just your life history. And here is a very good blog post about how to do that. It's a 5-step points on like, do this and do that. So read that and then write your bio and then talk to your buddy and make sure that your bio supports your proposal. Now, once you have your bio and your proposal, we need to submit them somewhere. Yes, you're not just writing them and hoping that something good will happen. You need to actually push it all the way through. Once you submit them, then it's off your hands. So we need to get you through to that point. If you have never spoken before or you've never been to conferences before, this part can be quite daunting. Like this whole world of conferences, where are they? So the way I do it, I'm an Android developer, so I will go on my favorite search engine and type Android conference, and then see what comes up. So the way you do it is maybe you found 1 conference, 3 conferences, but you don't stop right there. You take that conference, and then you look at the previous editions and look at the schedule, and then you see who spoke there. Most of the speakers will have a speaker profile on their website that lists all the talks that they have given. And by the way, you should make one too. Once you have a few, or even just one, have a speaker profile so that when people are looking and see, who is this person? Why should I let her into my conference? Oh, well, actually, she has given multiple talks and she knows what she's talking about. So having that speaker profile is great for you, and most of the other speakers will have that as well. So go to the conference, look up the name, find out what other conferences they have spoken at, and that's how you expand that circle of conferences, and then now you have multiple of them that you can submit to. So now you have the proposal, you have the bio, and you have the conference. Submit! Like Cate already covered, submit early, submit often. Don't think too hard about it. And yes, it is okay to submit the same talk proposal to multiple conferences. And yes, it is okay to submit more than 1 proposal to the same conference. For some reason, I don't know why, people got it into their head that you can only do 1 brand new talk per conference. So they are constantly trying to come up with new ideas. No, that's too exhausting. A lot of the times, your audience will be different when you give it at a different venue. Maybe they are just geographically different at a different place. Maybe they are at a different level at their career. And in general, you have put in so much work for your talk. More people deserve to see it. So don't deny them of that chance. Submit early, submit often, submit everywhere. And I am going to scroll down because there's actually 1 more step. Finally, at the end of the whole workshop, exchange contact information with your buddy group and stay in touch. Keep each other posted if you have submitted to some conferences and then you get accepted. Tell other people, celebrate together. If you heard about a conference, let other people know. Keep each other accountable. And happy submitting. I think we have time for questions, but I'm not sure what's the logistics of taking questions. So I'm going to let Javi drive that part.
Yeah, we're taking questions.
Yeah.
Sharing the podium, and whoever feels that they're best fitted for each question can...
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Great. So our first question comes in, it involves titling your papers. Are there certain catchy titles that can be used or certain best practices for titling your CFP?
Yes, we are smiling because I have a blog post called Fancy Titles Considered Harmful. Let me tell you a story. This is the easiest way to explain this. What happened was that I was going to give a talk at OSCON, and I titled it, Bust the Android Fragmentation Myth, which I thought was very catchy and awesome. But what happened was that it did not convey what I'm actually talking about, which is I'm talking about how do you deal with the fact that there are so many different form factors for Android. You have tablets and phone, and I'm actually covering the tactics of that. How do you deal with that? So at the end of the talk, someone actually came up to me and said, I'm so glad I came. I had no idea this is what you're covering. That's exactly what I needed. So later edition of that talk, I actually just titled it Supporting Multiple Devices for Android. And that is so much more obvious. And like I said during the actual lecture, make it obvious, make it easy for people to accept. So I would say actually err on the side of obvious. Fancy titles sounds like fun, but usually what happens is it confuses people.
Thank you for that. Another question we had come in. So if you have a special circumstance that you need to communicate to an organizer or a venue, when is the appropriate time to communicate that?
So that really depends on what it is. I think in general, I don't ask for things until after I'm accepted. So I think that's a good rule. But then you also maybe want to start communicating things before it's announced, because there are definitely situations where organizers don't respond well to requests that they should absolutely respond well to, but they don't do it. And then you may have to decide that you don't want to speak at that event. So kind of finding that balance. I've definitely fought for things at conferences. So last year I pulled out of a conference because they refused to have a code of conduct. And that was actually after it was announced. It was really not a fun experience. This year I had a much better experience. I had to ask for security for various reasons that I won't go into, and it was actually quite hard to get, and I ended up having to be quite forceful. I channeled my inner Chiu-Ki, but I did eventually get what I want. So kind of the sweet spot is between when you're accepted and when it's announced. Be as specific as possible. And don't let, conferences can often be like organizations where they will inflict their internal org structure on you, and they'll be like, you should speak to this person, you should speak to, but you don't know those people. Whoever is emailing you is the person that you speak to, and you make them deal with it, and if they won't deal with it, some other event will be more deserving of your time.
Yeah, so I just want to quickly add to that. One thing I learned about public speaking, and specifically at conferences, is that everything is negotiable. But the best moment to negotiate is after they have accepted you already, because they want you to be there. So for example, when I first started speaking, I had no idea, for example, that some conferences have limited budget to be able to help you get there, right? So I was limiting myself to just local conferences. But don't do that. Submit early, submit often, just submit already. And then once you are in, you can start the negotiation process and say, hey, I'm so excited, but I'm actually a freelancer and I do not have a company that's able to provide the traveling for me. Would you be able to do that? And then at that point in the conversation, the chips align, the cards aligned on your side. And so just don't make assumptions that, because they never explicitly state like your request, that is like, we pay for all speakers for traveling expense. That doesn't mean that they won't. So bear in mind that. So just submit, get your foot in the door, and then start the conversation. But before they announce, so that they don't, it's a little bit trickier once they announce, and then you pull out. So that is the sweet spot.
I have one. It's kind of from a comment we got on IRC saying it can help to be on the other side of a CFP, meaning you're the conference organizer. So I wonder if you saw yourself following these rules when you were reviewing proposals for your own conference recently, Chiu-Ki, or if either of you could comment on, what's your perception as on the other side, evaluating?
I reviewed conference proposals recently, and it was so interesting, and I wish I had done it sooner, because I felt like I got a profound level of insight into what was going on. And I absolutely used these rules, and a lot of proposals just seemed a little lazy. So if I didn't know what I was going to take away from the talk, then I would score it low. If I felt like someone had not really put much thought into the audience, they were just like, I played with this thing and it seems cool, and now I want to come and talk to a bunch of people about it for 45 minutes, then that would also score low. And the talks that I would score high were the ones where I'm like, I don't know what they're going to say, but I feel like I have a really good idea of why someone would want to go to this and what they would walk away with.
Yeah, and that is one very good tip is if you are interested and you have the time, a lot of the conferences will have a voting round where they send out the proposals to you. Maybe they scrub off the name of the people if it's a blind round. And then you get a chance to see a lot of proposals to the order of like 100 to 200, all at the same conference. And that, at that point, your brain can like do pattern matching and figure out, oh, so this is how a good proposal look like, and like the ones that are like sell that's like, I just want to sell you my product. You can clearly see that no, not those.
But you can also see what kind of topics are like a little too popular right now, so that you can kind of stay away from them. I think it took me about 4 hours to do this, and it was a really, really useful 4 hours of my time. Like even not kind of for me, but for other people that I could be like, oh, I could guide them towards better topics because I'd seen this kind of bigger picture.
Yeah, so volunteer yourself. A lot of the time, the way the conference organizers find people is just within their own circle. But if you're interested and you saw a conference that just closed the CFP, go ahead and ping the organizers and say, hey, I'm wondering if you need reviewers for your proposals, and I would be happy to chip in some time.
Yeah, I think especially like an event that you spoke at last year is a good one to follow up afterwards and say, I really enjoyed speaking at your event. I thought you did a great job. You know, I would love to help you next year. If you need someone to review proposals, like let me know.
Thank you for that. Apart from blogging and speaking publicly, what other tips do you recommend for building up your credibility?
Twitter. I'm obviously like a renowned expert on adorable raccoon pictures. So yeah, I think Twitter's good.
Yeah, Stack Overflow if you like answering questions. I actually very purposefully did that. When I first became a freelancer, I started writing a lot, started being more active on Twitter, and I also answered enough questions on Stack Overflow. It's interesting because the points are kind of like a savings account. Once you have a few questions that are general and people start upvoting them, then your reputation just kind of take care of itself. But that's one other thing that people will look to have. It's a sad shortcut, but it is a shortcut that people take. If you have like, oh, she has 1,000 points of Stack Overflow, she probably knows what she's talking about. So that's one other place that you can invest in your effort in establishing your credibility.
I would say also open sourcing stuff, so you don't have to just open source code. We actually run Technically Speaking open source, so you can see our issues in GitHub, you can search them in GitHub, and you can actually see how it gets built up over time, so you can see the issues that we assembled the night before and the ones that were built up in a less rushed way. I also put together a guide for doing technical interviews for my team when I was interviewing earlier this year, and I open sourced that on GitHub too. And so those are other ways that you can kind of create something that, you know, showcases your expertise in an area.
And another question that we had come in, how many people are currently involved with, Technically Speaking?
There's two. This is it.
The whole team is here.
Yeah, we're so happy to be here. But, you know, like I said, we put it on GitHub so people can submit issues, and people can send us CFPs, they can send us links that they think that we should include. So we're hoping that, you know, more people will get a little bit more involved. And we definitely have some very dedicated readers that we see as like a core part of the Technically Speaking crew.
Yeah, now that we have the issues, I started actually getting links that I was like, if you would do us a favor and actually wrote a sentence or two about it, like that will make our job so much easier. So we are starting to get that as well. So I guess we have a little bit of an extended team, but not really. It's mostly the two of us. Yeah.
But we know that there's people who have vandalized, Technically Speaking.
We do. Yeah.
You know, and we did
we have foot on the ground.
And we did a mentoring program last year, and so we had people who volunteered to be mentors and stuff. So that's really cool. And then of course we have our sustaining sponsors. So they're like very close to our heart because they make sure that Technically Speaking will keep going.
Can I follow on to that? Can you tell us a little more about your mentoring program, how that works?
So we just did it as, what was it? Was it our 18-month anniversary, or was it
usually we do those things as a celebration.
Yeah.
So I forgot at which milestone we did that, but what happened was we asked people to, it was at the end of the year, so it must be like a 1 year, have a 2016 speaking goals, essentially like a New Year resolution, and then we try to pair them up with someone for just a 1 hour mentoring session actually. So it's not much of a program, but more like a one time. Hey, these are your goals, let's make it happen. And then it's up to them to whether to follow up or just have 1 hour and then call it a day. But I think a large part of the exercise is also just having you sit down and actually write. Most of the time we want a public, if not a blog post, a tweet. So you have to crystallize your thoughts, like why do you want to make public speaking a priority and what exactly you're trying to do. And I think that alone already helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then plus we get that little push from the mentor to direct them specifically where they should be working on.
Well, a lot of mentoring programs are very ineffective because they promise too much and they don't give people a structure to be effective mentees. And so, we put a lot of thought into how do we time box this for the mentors, so we only ask them for an hour of their time, and how do we send people to the mentors in a way where they will get the absolute most of it. So first was this public statement of, these are my goals for 2016. And then second was we sent them emails, which was like, this is how you should communicate with your mentor. This is the kind of thing that you should ask for. This is the work you should do ahead of time. And then we also let the mentors know what they should be expecting and what it was reasonable for them to ask for. And all of this is documented on my blog. There's a blog post about running a mentoring program.
It looks like we have one more question coming in from the laptop, but real quick I'll ask if anyone inside the room has any questions. Great. What tips do you offer for somebody submitting a CFP on a topic they've never spoken on before?
Have they written about it?
Pardon?
Write blog posts.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's so I guess in theory this is their first time presenting on the topic, but something that they're familiar with.
Yeah, so I think to start writing things about that topic, and also to get an understanding of what it is that people need to hear about that topic. So to search other talks on that topic and try and find what's generally being said about it and kind of find their unique take on this thing.
So one thing I have done is also I have literally given half a talk at the meetup. So basically I have enough material that I think is interesting, but I don't have enough to make a full talk. Yeah. So I approached one of the meetup organizers are always looking for speakers. That's a tip. So they will even take half a talk. So I told them and say, hey, I have this topic that I would like to speak about, but it's a 45-minute slot and I only have 20 minutes of material, but I still would like to come in and present my 20 minutes and then get feedback and discuss with the crowd that showed up and see what they think, what this inspires them or what does it apply to their case. And then I actually did build up the rest of the talk because of that half talk. So you could iterate. I mean, a talk is 1 unit, but actually it's okay to give half a talk. And Meetup in general is a great place for you to do that. You can also give lightning talks that's only 5 minutes. But again, usually you have some time afterwards to socialize and network, and you can use that as a place to say, hey, what do you think of my talk? Is there anything else you would add to that, and expand from that? So I like using talks to get more talks. Blogs are great, but I don't know why, but when I talk things aloud, the thought becomes much more real and they are much more...
So what you're saying is you're an extrovert.
Okay, fine. I guess Cate can give you the introvert version of this. But as an extrovert, going to meetups and talking it out loud, giving half talks was actually very helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I think meetups are good because they're much less intimidating. There's fewer people. It's generally like a community of people who go most months. And the quality of talks is just lower than the average quality of a conference talk because it's a meetup, it's free, $5-10, and it's a different thing. I actually love meetups for convincing other people to give talks.
I do that too.
Yeah. So actually, I went to a meetup with one of the engineers on my team, and he was like, "That was a terrible talk."
So you can do better.
Well, yeah, no, that's exactly what I did.
Why don't you give a talk?
I was like, see, you could do better than that.
Yeah.
And then I talked him into giving his first talk at the meetup. It was great.
Yeah, I actually run a meetup, and I am always out there looking for speakers, partly because I do need speakers, but for some reason, that is a very strong motivation when you go and say, I need help, help me,
Yeah.
give a talk. And it's actually, I'm trying to get them to talk, but I phrase it in such a way that, please help me because I have no speaker. And I actually get a lot of people respond to that much better than like, you need to give a talk because it's good for your career.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
If there's no more questions in the room, last call for questions in the room. I was going to pull a trick one like, what do you think about co-presenting? Have you ever tried that? No.
Oh my God. This is our
but-
second co-presenting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good with someone you know well and that you can, I think it would be really hard with a stranger.
Yeah,
oh my
definitely.
God. Yeah.
You're wonderful presenting together.
Oh,
Thank you
thank you.
so much. It's really chock full of really useful information. So thank you again. And that's all for now.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.